In our first episode, we talked about how the elderly are one of the populations at highest risk of developing illness from COVID. But why are they also the most stubborn when it comes to getting vaccinated? Did you guys notice that? Just me? Welcome again to the COVID Guide series. I'm Kylie, your local science nerd / concerned grandchild. Today, we'll be discussing the many rumors surrounding the COVID vaccines. We understand that there's been a lot of fear and hesitation surrounding getting vaccinated, especially among the populations that need it most. So today we're just gonna hop straight into it and hopefully provide y'all with more clarity and insight into your healthcare choices. Rumor number 1. The COVID vaccines are unsafe because drug companies rush to create them quickly. Look, we are in a global pandemic. Of course, there's urgency to develop the vaccines ASAP so that we can all go back to living normally. But that urgency does not equivalent unsafe. And here's why. The first reason being all the vaccines have to go through strict studies and protocols through the FDA to make sure that they're effective and safe. Plus, the main reason they were even able to get everything done so quickly is because everybody was literally funneling their money into this. Like, this was the top priority in terms of where our money is going. And it was a global effort. It was a global priority, so everybody was just funneling money into this and sharing their data with the other countries. And usually vaccines take years to get approved, but imagine how fast things work when you just put money in that area. It kind of makes you think, like, what other global health issues could have been quickly resolved if we just put all our money there instead of, I don't know, other useless places. But that's just me. Also, it is important to note that scientists aren't starting from scratch when they were making this vaccine. We've known about SARS, we've known about coronaviruses. They've been studying these things for over 50 years. That's 5 whole decades of coronavirus structure, genome, life cycle. Like, that's a lot of data if you think about it. These vaccines actually kind of took over 50 years to make if you're including all that data gathering they had to do for the past 5 decades. So to summarize, yes, they all made these very quickly, but they still had to follow the same protocols that every other vaccine had to do. And again, the only reason it was able to be developed that fast is because of money. Money seriously makes the world go round. And finally, thankfully, scientists already had 50+ years worth of information to help them. So the last thing I will say about this is that the people that have come up to me with this concern that it wasn't fully developed say that they've heard this rumor back in early 2020, and in that case, it kind of would be true that the vaccine wasn't fully developed yet because the pandemic literally just started during then, so it would make sense, right, that the vaccine wasn't fully developed when they first heard about that. Like, I don't know what to tell you in that case. The second rumor is, I have allergies, so I can't get the COVID-19 vaccine. Okay, so if you watched our second episode, you might remember that some of the vaccines need a lipid packaging or sort of envelope for the vaccine itself to be delivered into our bodies. There are a few people in the global population that are allergic to that fatty lipid packaging found in brands like Moderna and Pfizer. The ingredient is called polyethylene sorbate, or PEG, or polysorbate. And if this sounds familiar to you, you might have seen it on like the backs of skincare packaging or food packaging, like on the ingredients lists, because it is a common emulsifier. So it helps like oil and water mix. That's the best way I can explain it. So it is safe. That ingredient is safe for most people, but you know, there are those few people that are allergic to PEG normally. So if you already know that you're allergic to PEG or polysorbate and have already been avoiding brands that have PEG on the ingredient list, like Cetaphil I think has it, then please discuss or consult with your doctor on what brand of vaccine might be better for you, because the other brands might not be using PEG as their packaging. So unless you have that really specific PEG allergy, having any other type of allergy like food, dust, would not be an area of concern for you in terms of getting the vaccine, because it's not really the vaccine itself, it was just the fatty packaging of the vaccine. And that means you can still and should get vaccinated. The third rumor we heard is the vaccines will make you sick with COVID-19. None of the COVID-19 vaccines offered in the Philippines nor around the world have a live virus. This is something we've reiterated over and over in our first 2 episodes, and only a live virus can cause COVID-19. So no, getting a vaccine won't give you the disease. Though after getting vaccinated, you might experience some side effects similar to COVID-19, like fever, but don't mistake this as being the same as being infected by the virus. This is just your immune system trying to figure out an immune response. It's them fighting a training dummy, as we've discussed in episode 2. The fourth rumor we've heard is that the COVID-19 vaccines don't work on new strains of the virus. Okay, mutations in the virus are normal, so this is something that scientists have anticipated when making the vaccine. In the last episode, I mentioned that scientists do anticipate the current vaccines to be effective against newer strains that might arise, and their confidence for saying that is because COVID has a relatively low mutation rate compared to other viruses like influenza. This means that new mutations in new strains that might arise are not as varied enough for our antibodies to not be able to fight against them. But yes, more research still needs to be done, and they are conducting more studies. And these studies are to get the exact numbers to let the public know how effective these vaccines would be against potentially new strains. And there is no evidence that the vaccines won't work against new strains, but again, there is supporting data like the low mutation rate to show that it would be effective against new and upcoming strains. The fifth rumor we've heard is that there is a tracker in the vaccine. This rumor is by far the most bizarre one that I've encountered, but it is highly alarming to me that many people close to me and to our team, like friends or friends of friends and family, do believe this. So where did this rumor even come from? This rumor started when this guy named Roger Stone, who was Donald Trump's former advisor, told a bunch of people that people like Bill Gates were using the virus to microchip people to see if they've been tested. Honestly, I didn't really look into the full context of what he means by seeing if people have been tested. Like, why would you need to track COVID tests if you've already been vaccinated? It just doesn't make sense to me. I can't figure out a reason, but it doesn't matter, it's all bull anyway. Donald Trump already has a history of spreading fake news about the COVID virus. So why the heck would we trust anything from anyone who was advising him? But I digress. Anyway, what Bill Gates actually said that prompted Roger Stone's deluding words was, "We will have some digital certificates." That's the quote. "We will have some digital certificates." Literally, that's it. That's all he said. No microchips, no tracker. The intention was to provide a digital way to take note of whether you've been vaccinated or not, as opposed to the tiny slips of paper you're given after you get your inoculation. The more radical idea to that concept was to maybe give people a tattoo with special ink that could like store your vaccine data. And it was just an idea. It doesn't store your personal data on a database or anything. There was no mention of a tracker at all. This isn't being rolled out or provided to people. Personally, I don't think it's that innovative because we already have cell phones or, I don't know, online platforms that could give us a digital storage of our medical data instead of paperless. It was really just all a misunderstanding upon misunderstanding, misconstrued into data that supported anti-vax beliefs. There is no tracker in the vaccine. You're good. The sixth and final rumor we will be talking about in this video today is that the vaccines cause problems with fertility. Variations of this rumor that I've heard or seen on the internet are stuff like you could get a miscarriage if you get vaccinated, you could get a miscarriage if you stand next to someone who's vaccinated, you could get infertile if you stand next to someone that's vaccinated. This mass hysteria further blew up after the BBC released an article entitled COVID vaccine, period changes could be a short-term side effect, and that kind of started circulating around the interweb. It seemed like most people only read the title and then started expressing their rage about how dismissive researchers were about the womb. This was particularly evident among spiritual folks online. And honestly, I can't blame them and their rage because I think there has been a lack of empathy addressing vaccine hesitancy. It is easy to lose the human touch when delivering vaccine info because of all the scientific terms and everything. And there are already so many people that are distrustful of healthcare workers and doctors and scientists in general. Kind of the main reason why me and my friends wanted to start this channel, to bridge that gap. Anyway, back to this. If people felt welcome enough to read that BBC article, they would learn that the most plausible explanation for why this is happening is because the immune cells in the uterus are acting up. Again, the point of the vaccine is to trigger an immune response in the body. So side effects are a good thing. It means your body is responding. It's building antibodies. Though we often forget that immune cells are found everywhere around our body, including the uterine lining. The immune cells found in the uterine lining usually aid in building the lining, maintaining it, and shedding it. So it would be normal that if the immune cells there perceive that there is a threat, that they would kind of go into overdrive and start doing their job, and bleeding happens. But as the title of the article says, it's just temporary. Much like the other side effects, it only lasts a few days. Now, the other concern here would be like, okay, shedding, bleeding, still sounds pretty scary, especially if I'm pregnant. And yeah, valid, but thankfully this concern is also addressed in the article, because when you're pregnant, there are other mechanisms in place that maintain that uterine lining and that the immune cells wouldn't just start shedding. Which leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about regarding this, which is, where would these infertility and miscarriage fears even come from? Like, if so many people around the world are concerned about it, it wouldn't just come up from out of nowhere. So we did some digging, and that's exactly right. It started because there was this German doctor named Dr. Wolfgang Vollard who was concerned about the vaccines because he noticed that there was a short string of code in the spike protein that matches a short string of code that makes up the human placenta. So what he was trying to imply with his concerns was that if our bodies are being trained to fight off the spike proteins, what if our body starts trying to fight off human placenta? And yeah, that sounds pretty scary, honestly, and most people would just stop there and take that information, especially if they were already anti-vax, take that information and just run with it instead of trying to figure out the truth of it. So if you can already tell where this is going, the concerns of Dr. Vollard were not really anything to worry about because it's kind of impossible. While it is true that spike proteins share a short string of code with the human placenta, it is not enough to trick our bodies into attacking the human placenta. Dr. Jill Foster of the University of Minnesota had a pretty great analogy of explaining this. She said that it's like, just because two different people share the same last two digits of a telephone number, those telephone numbers are not the same. If you try calling one of those, it doesn't mean that you're also going to be able to call the other person that has, like, let's say 317 at the end. It just won't work. So this is what I want to come across with that argument of similar string of code. The last thing I want to bring up with this rumor is that researchers did find that the people that were often getting the bleeding were people that already had pre-existing blood conditions, like their platelets don't clot enough or they have low platelet count. So if you know that you already have pre-existing health conditions, it's always best to consult your doctor to figure out which vaccine brand would be best for you, or even what to expect if you were to get vaccinated, so that you don't get too overwhelmed by a side effect that might happen. But to sum up this rumor, it is totally false. And if some of it still confuses you, drop your concerns in the comments below. We want to make sure that people are understanding this clearly. Vaccination is actually highly encouraged for pregnant women because you can pass the antibodies through your breast milk to your baby, so then your baby would be more immune against COVID. So those are all the rumors I have for you today. These are scary times indeed, and I understand that the thing that's supposed to relieve us of this scary virus can also be pretty scary, and fear grows because the internet is a very influential space. But if there's anything you can take away from this, it's that if you hear anything bizarre or concerning about the vaccine, don't just take someone's word for it. Do your research and read from legit sources, not just Facebook posts or tweets. And if you don't have it in you to do that research, that's fine. That's why we're here. We'll do the research for you. Just let us know what it is that concerns you in the comments or in our social media posts. Just please think before sharing. The spread of misinformation can spread like wildfire, and this pandemic can stretch on for much longer than we think if we keep encouraging that fear. Concern and curiosity is valid and important. Just again, do your research. But yeah, I hope this video eases your anxiety and fears about the vaccine, and maybe even your parents' or grandparents' concerns, and that now you can better convey the truth about the chica that they heard. Let's just all do our part to getting the Philippines to being COVID-free. Imagine that. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one where we go over the specific COVID vaccine brands being offered in the Philippines so that you can make a more informed choice about which one you'd like to get if you haven't gotten your first dose yet. Anyway, stay safe.